This video is dedicated to my friend who goes by the username of Winged Orange Umbrellas, who's having some problems with her father's reaction to her being vegan. And I had intended to talk about this topic for a while, but watching her video, which I'll make this a response to, sort of jogged my memory to do it. I think really coping with the reactions of other people is probably the hardest part of being vegan out of everything. It's not choosing what to eat, it's not learning the nutritional information. That's relatively simple. Most of it, is collated together in various websites. And if you just take a bit of time, which everyone, whether they're vegan or not, should probably take a bit of time to learn about nutrition, seeing as, you only get one body, and if you don't look after it to a reasonable extent, it's gonna, conk out on you pretty early. So that's not hard. But dealing with other people can be sometimes. And I learnt that, obviously, myself, from my own experiences. And contrary to what some people, who oppose veganism or whatever, like the comments that they leave on some of my videos, meat eaters don't make nasty comments or, just ignorant and rude comments to us, because we provoke them. It doesn't matter. You don't have to provoke anyone at all. And a good example is some of my former workmates and their responses. I didn't proclaim my veganism, but we had there's certain instances in which it's a bit hard not to say that you are vegan without looking like you have an eating disorder or something. We had a work lunch, and I brought my own food. I didn't, bring a plate of food for everyone else because I basically, forgot. But anyway, someone was offering me like a Rice Crisp type, biscuit type thing, and I looked on the packet to see if it had like dairy in it or anything. And someone asked me if I was lactose intolerant, and I said no, I'm vegan. And there was a whole bunch of things that came out of that. I mean, first off, my boss laughed at me, right in my face. That was her immediate reaction. She just laughed. She thought it was funny, or it was a nervous response. I'm not sure. And then one of the other ladies said, "Oh, well, that will explain why you have such a flat stomach. I wish I looked like you." Right? So there was a positive reaction. Then later on, while everyone was eating, I was seated next to another lady. And she said, basically, she was feeling sorry for me because I couldn't eat all the stuff that everyone else had brought. And I just sort of, she said, "Oh, isn't it hard? Isn't it hard not to eat these things? Don't you feel, left out because you're not eating them?" And I said, "Well, no, because from my perspective, once you know how these things are made, they're not particularly appetizing." And she was just sort of and didn't really say anything back, and I didn't continue the conversation. Later on that same day, I was sitting next to two other workmates, and one of them, who I was quite friendly with, who was a really nice lady, she said, "How long have you been vegan for?" And at that time it was about 3 months, I think. And I said, 3 months. And she was fine, but the other woman seated next to her turned around and just snapped at me and said, "Oh, well, it's just a phase then. You'll grow out of it." Now, I'm 29 now. I was 28 then. So, it's not like a teenage phase or something. I'm a grown adult, and I made these decisions based on, various information and experiences that I've had. So she, snapped at me, and she said, "Oh, it won't last, you'll grow out of it, you'll stop being vegan soon." And I said, And she provoked me a little bit. So what I said back was, I said, well, no, actually, because any minute amount of pleasure I might gain from eating non-vegan food isn't worth the suffering the animals go through to make it. And she couldn't really say anything back to that. So, that wasn't overly, pleasant. And then my boss later on said something like, she was walking past and she said, oh, we'll have to have some kind of a work do in the future, blah, blah, blah. Oh, we'll make sure Jess has something to eat. Not, sort of thing. So it wasn't that bad, but I mean, that same lady who snapped at me, later on, she, at another work lunch thing that we had, I had these Vietnamese cold rolls that I'd gotten from the shop across the road. And it was like a really nice supermarket that sold all kinds of things, including sort of pre-made foods and all the rest of it. And, sorry, I'm burping because I just had dinner. Someone said, oh, where in the shop are the cold rolls? And I said, oh, they're just sort of next to the tofu. And this woman sat there and she just went like this, like that. So obviously some people are so touchy, all you have to do is say tofu and you get a reaction out of them. Yeah. So people are funny, and there's a person, close to me, like a family member, I won't say who it is. But, not out of nastiness or anything. It's just, I guess, I don't know, it's just a funny reaction that this person had. But after, like, for the first, I don't know how many months, she was always announcing, like, that I was vegan whenever we went to, like, a restaurant or a cafe or anything. She'd go to the counter and she'd go, basically, like, look, she's vegan, sort of thing. And sometimes when it was, it's not necessary to do that, for one, and sometimes when she said it, it was sort of, it ended up, there was one time we went in this cafe, sort of bakery type place, and she was listing off all the things that I couldn't eat. And the guy behind the counter I don't think he actually knew what a vegan was. So I think he thought I had some kind of horrible disease, which meant that I couldn't eat any of those foods. And he looked at me and he said, oh, that's sad, So people are funny, like, they don't have the information that we have, or they're not at the same stage, like, they don't understand. And it can be very annoying, but all you can really do is just ignore it and, pick your battles and realize that when people do that kind of stuff, it may not be worth retaliating at all. Just ignore them. They might not even be trying to upset you. It might just be some, I don't know. Anything that anyone does that goes against the status quo is going to get a reaction. People just feel uncomfortable about it, So you've got to just keep on doing what you're doing, do what you think is right, and focus on, like, what you're achieving by making the decisions that you've made, and try to keep your head up and not get dragged down with all the bullshit, which can be hard sometimes. So I'll leave you with some positive thoughts to keep your motivation up and help you cope with ignorance and haters and all that kind of bullshit. So thanks for watching, and good night.